All right, everybody, welcome to episode 12 of our quarantine film study. Today, we want to go back to the running back position, and we wanted to grab someone who had a first round pedigree, but the production hasn't quite been there. Wanted to dive a little deeper into that and see what was there. And so, we're going to take a look at Sony Michel today. And to do that breakdown, I wanted to bring in somebody that I've gotten to know here over the past 12, 18 months and have really learned to appreciate so many different ways in terms of what he's willing to give and how he's willing to help people. And that's Coach David Walker. Has been with the Lions and the Colts, coached at Syracuse and Pitt, if I'm not mistaken. And so, Coach, just wanted to say thank you to you for joining us today.
I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be fun and, get back to watching a little bit of film and going over some guys here.
Absolutely. Well, as always, I have to say thank you to a couple groups that helped us produce this today. The first being Telemetry Sports. Using that tool allows us to build these kind of cut-ups where we can go in and look for some specific things. So we wanted to look at runs where there was some production over 4 yards. That was one of our markers in this. And then we broke things down by different types of run schemes. We're going to look at some inside and outside zone. We're going to look at some gap plays, power counter, things of that nature, to really get a feel for what was happening there in the variety that is the New England run game. We also to say thank you to the NFL for providing film via their tool GamePass, which they have made free now all the way to July 31st. So thank you to GamePass for providing the film. And here we go. Let's take a look at Sony Michel. And so as always, guys, if you've seen our videos before, at the bottom, we're going to give you the week, the matchup, quarter time, score, what have you, just so you can follow along because this is not one game. This is a cut up throughout the season. So here we are, week 2, up against the Miami Dolphins in the division. Already have a 16-point lead. And so one of the things that we noticed, Coach, we were breaking this down. I just want to give our viewers here. You're going to see the fullback, and we're going to see a lot of them this season. We went back and broke this down. They ended up using 3 different fullbacks, including a conversion from linebacker to fullback, and then about 4 different tight ends as lead blockers. And so there's a lot of variance in that. And so as we get more into that, Coach, I'd like to hear from you. I don't think we discuss, at least publicly enough, that relationship between the blockers and the running back. So as we go through this, that's one of those things I'd like to learn a little bit more from you about as we watch this. So I'm aiming here for the end cut. And obviously, if you want anything else, Coach, just let me know and we'll bring it back.
All right. And just your point about the relationship between the running back and the blocker or the fullback, I think the blocker has to do a good job and not try to determine where the ball is going. His job is to try to get as much surface as he can on the guy he's supposed to block at the point of attack and allow the runner to be a runner. There'll be certain plays if he's kicking out on the edge where he'll look to get inside out leverage, but when he's working on these isolation type concepts and blocking second level inside backers, really try to get as much surface on the block and allow the runner to read the block and be a runner.
So 2 weeks ago, you held a running back clinic that I was able to sit in on and listen to, and you were talking about running back reads, and you went through the different run schemes and ways that a running back could be reading that. So not to unpack the entirety of that, but just to give a little primer on that, I was interested in when you see, because you were measuring it by fronts and counts and things of that nature, but a lot of focus on the linebacker position. So in a run like this, all right, when we see the tight end offset this way, we got a fullback in the backfield. When you're looking at these 2 running backs, can you just help us with little definitions? What are you labeling these guys as?
So the 52 as the play goes right, to me, you're talking about either a play side linebacker or a backside linebacker based on the direction of the play. So as the play goes to the right for the offense, to the left of the defense, 52 becomes that play side linebacker position, and then 55 would be the backside linebacker position. As the full flow comes to the offensive right here to the diagram's left. So that's how I would communicate to the ball carriers, and that just is putting us all on the same page in terms of how we talk, how we identify things. So in between a series, we can give and receive information quickly and understand what's going on before we got to get back out on the field.
So the way Miami set up here, they were pretty gapped out up front, but obviously our lead blocker here is adding a gap. So what is the running back most likely keying in a situation like this?
Well, he's going to, as the play starts front side, it's full flow isolation. He'll be reading whatever gap stays open on the front side. And then at this point, it becomes reading the hat of the blockers. Sony makes the decision to go to the right, even though in this particular picture, 52 is playing it and has his left arm free. So really, in my opinion, the ball's got to split those two blockers or find its way out the backside, based on the flow of the backside linebacker as well. So there's a lot of things that the back has to look at. The important thing is kind of the progression in terms of what he looks at stuff in. And different guys coach it up different ways, but there's going to be a point of attack. You're gonna start downhill toward the point of attack, and then I like to work toward the play side linebacker who's blocking that defender with my next read.
And so to your point here, he takes on a gap that some other running backs wouldn't with 52 having that hat there, but he does manage to get outside of him.
Yep.
And take this upfield.
Yep. And good job. And the fullback got enough surface on the block where 52 couldn't ricochet and make a play.
So just take a look in that full speed. And then we move forward here a week. Now we have the Jets game. No points on the board. It's a 1st and goal from the 5. And just by formation, I'm always interested in the pre-snap piece of this because it's so hard for evaluators to try to get into the pre-snap piece. You're trying to get in the head of a player that you weren't around for the install on. So I'm always interested in hearing from coaches when you see different defensive setups and or different offensive formations. So again, this 1st and 5 situation with this kind of formation, this 2x2 here by New England, what do you think the running backs keying on in this particular setup?
Yeah, well, the first thing down in the tight red zone would be everything's going to happen a little bit quicker because the secondary supporters, run support players are closer to the ball because they don't have to be deep for pass. So from a running back standpoint, when you get down inside the 7, 6, 3, 4, everything's quicker. The run support's going to be on you quicker. So that's number one. Number 2 would be, once again, this is a first down call. Protect the ball at all costs. I mean, as you're trying to navigate, you're trying to score, first down in 5 running is a little bit different than 3rd down in 5 or 4th down in 1, for example. So make sure you're taking care of the ball, understand that you're going to get the run support showing up a heck of a lot quicker. And then based on, it looks like they got a bare front from this angle. Looks like the center's covered. Looks like you got 2-3 techniques covering the guards, and there's overhang. So the Jets here on defense are trying to do everything they can to take away double teams from the offensive line. So we'll see what New England runs here, if they got a zone scheme or a gap scheme here. Yep. So they're running outside zone.
And so I just want to take a look, as you had mentioned, that bare front, and you talked about the overhang. So again, just some of the difficulty when you get in these setups. So there's the 3 down linemen you were talking about, and here are overhangs looking to set the edge.
Yeah. Yep. So on this thought process, knowing that they've called an outside zone, they're zoning to the right. 85, the tight end is trying to reach or cover up. Let me say cover up the outside linebacker. So as the outside linebacker has that much width, there's a good chance that the ball is not going to get all the way around the defense. So from the back standpoint in this particular look, he should be thinking, I'm going to come across, I'm going to stretch, but I'm probably going to end up cutting up inside in the first open gap based on how our linemen can handle the down lineman and if we can get to that middle linebacker and or safety.
So if these 2 blockers are most likely taking this setup here, you're saying that this is the key matchup for the running back to read on?
Yeah, and it's really should be almost pre-read based on understanding the defense. When I say understanding the defense, the structure of this defense is to force the ball back inside. They've got a stand-up outside linebacker who should probably contain. And so there's a good chance we're not getting this ball around the defense, but it's going to have to upcut and penetrate the defense.
I gotcha. So we'll watch this at full speed, and then again, we can bring it back. And so I just want to call out this one piece because they use a technique here that I think can throw some people off because you call this a zone play. And, some peoples are trying to learn a base definition for it. They learn that, well, everybody's got to move in the same direction. Well, they get the right tackle on the down block here and wrap.
Yeah, they pin and pull it, actually. Yep.
Now, from a definition standpoint, would you still go with a full flow and call this outside zone, or you going with?
Yeah, I would now seeing it from the end zone, the pin down by the tackle and the guard pulling front side. I'd put this in what I would call a pin and pull mentality. So now we do have the ball. We have a chance. Once again, 85's block on the. Once again, however New England's deciding to do this, it looks like they're running 85 inside, and they're going to take the puller, and now the puller is going to have the end of line defender. So if you go back to the beginning of this one, just go back to the start so we can. So there's two concepts that could happen. Okay, the first concept we talked about is if they just zone, and so 85 would block 53, the right tackle and the right guard would zone the A and the B gaps, and they would zone up to either that safety or backer. So that's one concept. Zone that could happen. Now, what New England's doing actually is they're trying to set the edge of the defense with the right tackle blocking down on the 3 technique. So they're going to try to stop the defense from flowing at the first level there. The tight end looks like he's veer releasing inside, so he's not blocking 50 through. Now, whether he's veer releasing for the safety like you have it there, or whether he's veer releasing inside for the mic, I'm not sure until I see a little bit more. But now the guard is pulling, the right guard or the play side guard's pulling for that end of line overhang. And now the back can kind of work off that block. If the overhang contains, takes it on with his inside arm, then we should expect the ball to go inside of that. If that overhang defender tries to spill the guard and take it on with his outside arm, and then we would expect the ball to get around it. So they've got a pin and pull scheme, the tight ends in a veer release inside. Once again, we'll see on this whether he's going inside for the safety or going inside to the mic. And then on the backside, between the center, backside guard, and backside tackle, they're going to probably try to full zone this thing, capture the mic backer up to the backside safety.
The last piece from kind of an install, I know the first few plays always take us a few more minutes because I love to get these kind of insights out. We hear a lot when we talk about running backs, people are talking about tempo. And how do you get the tempo a run? And so you would talk about reading off of this pull. So what does the running back have to do to, for lack of a term, stay in phase or stay in tempo with that pull?
Yep. I think here, based on formation, because he's coming from offset weak, he's behind the blocker enough for the blocker to get out in front. And then basically to read the block is working to your blocker's helmet side. So if your blocker gets his helmet on the outside, then you continue on the outside. If the blocker gets his helmet on the inside, like here, it's an inside out block, then the ball should press up inside. So I think the back does a nice job of reading the block, the primary block. And then on the backside of the play, the offensive linemen do a good enough job of getting guys knocked down. There's some green pants and white jerseys on the ground on the backside, and it created a lane for the ball carrier to get through the line of scrimmage.
So just to bring that last point home, you talked about reading the helmet. So there's 69's helmet inside, and that's when he cuts.
Yep.
He starts to transition and change his weight, and he's now going to follow up in there. And ends up taking it in for 6.
Yep. So nice play design versus that front, and nice execution there by New England.
So we jump ahead 2 more weeks. Tight game. Washington up 7-6 on New England. This is a 1st and 10 play here. And we get the pre-snap motion. Looks like 11 personnel. We have a tight end. Doesn't look like we have a lead blocker anywhere. Don't see any other motions coming. So from a box count standpoint, looks like we just have 7 here. Is there any different thoughts in 7s versus 8s for a running back?
Yeah, I mean, here this is a little bit distorted based on the split of the wide receiver at the bottom here. He's in such a snug split that safety is kind of getting down there, but the receiver is still in position to block that safety. So really the numbers right now kind of add up okay for the offense. Now, if we took the wide receiver down here at the bottom and put him out in a normal split and that safety still remained right in that position. Now, to me, those numbers are the advantage of the defense, because they've truly outnumbered the offensive blockers in the box. But here, decent chance that the wide receiver can get a block on the safety. So it almost becomes, even though it appears that not that it appears, it is a 7-man box, but your wide receiver's in position to block the 7th man. So it's really a 6-on-6, to me, offensive advantage right here initially.
Okay. So we'll take this forward and take a look at it, and then obviously get to the end copy as well.
And there's a good example of what I'm talking about. Is just the wide receiver is able to get to the safety and wash him by the hole. And so now that extra defender was accounted for. Now the cornerback here has to crack replace and become the primary force.
I got to call that one out again for everybody at home trying to learn a little bit about this. So that term you just used, crack replace, so that wide receiver gets that block and takes this guy out of the count. That now forces this corner. He's got to step up and replace.
Right. So they're from a defensive perspective in terms of supporting the run, they're by their coverage calls, most of the times in zones, there's going to be one of the guys. So, for example, in cover 2, the corner becomes the force player. If you were in a quarters or a cover 3 type of look, then the safety becomes a force player. When you're the primary force, you see run, you play run. If you're what I would call the secondary force, you're the second guy. You've got to make sure it's not play action pass, and then you end up coming up and you support. But the minute that this primary support guy is blocked, like the wide receiver here is blocking the safety, now that corner has to trigger once he understands it's not play action pass, and now he's got to become the secondary force and show up to make this tackle for the defense to be sound. And he does. 24 shows up, Josh Norman shows up and is in position and stops the play for a 2-yard gain. But just the offensive formation allowed New England, by having Edelman in a snug split, allowed him to block the safety. It allowed the offensive lineman in this 11 personnel look to be 6-on-6. 5 offensive linemen and a tight end can handle the 4-down lineman and the 2 linebackers. And now, what from an offensive standpoint you want to have happen, you want to have the non-primary run support have to make tackles. Sure. And that's what happens here for New England. They get a hat on the safety, who's the primary run support, and then the corner is a guy that's coming down a little bit later. So from a design standpoint, both sides of the ball on this really execute this well. New England blocks the 7th man, but Washington has their 8th man support and make the tackle, and it's a 2 or 3 yard gain. But really both sides playing good football on this play, in my opinion.
So one of the things that gets interesting for me, again, trying to look at a running back from the perspective of decision making, right? We're always trying to figure out, was the decision sound in some way? So what are the difficulties here when you start getting some of these 2 eyes, and now you got a linebacker that's stacked and protected? Does that change anything for the running back, in your opinion?
Yep. So one of the things the running backs always got to be, always has to have the understanding of is which blockers are assigned to block which defenders on a play. So this is just inside zone, weak side, inside zone. So the combination of the center and the left guard are going to work together on that left 2-eye or left 2 technique to the linebacker on the hash mark, the play side linebacker. So you got that combination working there. On the backside guard and backside tackle are going to work in combination to the backside linebacker. So from the running back standpoint, as long as those backers stay in front of the combination blocks, then he can make those guys right by bringing the ball out the back door, bringing the ball behind those blocks, so to speak. So I think that's what's happening here. Really, the key block is going to be the tight end block on the defensive end, because what that's going to do, that's going to set up whether the back ends up having a 2-way go to come inside or outside the tight end, based on the flow of the linebacker. So the linebackers are gone. The back starting his bend back. Now I'm going to feel the tight end's block and work off his hat, and I'm going to feel my receiver's block and work off his hat.
So again, to your point, that initial trajectory, those linebackers step up, Now we've got our 2-on-1 should be good here as long as he comes in some version back on the back.
Yep, exactly right.
Let's see how he takes it. So he takes it all the way back.
Yep.
That defensive end tries to stay in the C gap inside of 83.
And just pause it when he comes out the back door, right there, right when he comes out the back door. Okay, so this is right here is perfect. This is the situation you can hope you can get your any ball carrier, whether it's the running back, whether it's a receiver, but when we can get the ball carrier in space, one-on-one with a defender, we've got to win. For us to have success as an offense, we have to win those one-on-one battles. Now, here the defender wins because the guy brings him down. But when you're drawing up plays and you say, hey, we've got our skilled athlete in space on another skilled athlete, that guy's got to be able to win more than he loses. So you'd love to see he'll find a way for Sony to break this tackle or make this defender miss. But I think once again, Josh Norman does a nice job because he knows where his help is. He's gonna make sure he tackles the outside, or if he misses, he forces that ball back inside to where his help is. He shouldn't allow that ball to bounce outside of it. And I think the corner does a nice job in terms of getting to the level of the ball. And when I say get to the level of the ball, don't stop your feet. Keep moving up toward the ball before you try to make a tackle on the outside half of the defense or on the ball carrier, and then force the ball back inside. So like I said before, I think this is really good football by both teams. New England blocked it up. The ball carrier read it correctly. Washington on defense got their secondary run support player to come up and make a tackle. So this is just good football, both sides of the ball.
It'll be interesting as we continue through this to kind of watch Sony and some of that decision making, and then particularly watch him in terms of creating, because that was something you and I talked about when we built this.
Yep.
That we liked about him coming out of Georgia was some of that ability to create in space.
Exactly. And for him, hasn't shown up quite as much as I'm sure he would like and the Patriots would like early on. And he's a young guy. He'll have some chance to keep improving as he goes. Okay.
So here's one of the more explosive runs he's got.
Yep.
So, again, I'm always fascinated by trying to find the bubble and what are the linebackers doing. So,
yep.
The idea of space, the idea of the bubble, this 2-eye then creates that opportunity there. Is that the kind of stuff that you guys are looking at and installing with your running backs, is trying to look at where that space is going to be in a defensive formation, or again, is it just more about you think reading where those guys end up?
Yeah, I think on every play there'll be a starting point in terms of the point of attack, and then understanding what the concept is. And once again, they're running zone with what I would call slice action as they come back inside by 85. But the conflict that they're trying to put the defense in with zone right, showing the tight end, that when I say the tight end, the off the ball tight end coming backside to slice on the defensive end. And now from the back perspective, just kind of reading this out. Once again, I think you start with the play side linebacker, but as he's working to the play side linebacker, the nose guard is going to kind of force the play backside.
And so again, just with the run action being here, we're defining this as play side in this case.
Yeah. And as that guard and tackle, so on the zone concept, you're trying to create your double teams, but you can't double team everybody. Someone's going to have a single block. So they've made the decision here to have their guard and tackle work together in tandem on the defensive end and the backer. The center's by himself on the nose. And then on the backside guard and tackler together to the backside linebacker, and they're going to handle the backside defensive end with Izzo as he comes across and blocks the defensive end on the backside. So, and the front side tight end is by himself, 83. So, as the ball carrier starts to come downhill, he can work off that double team to the play side linebacker. Really, the ball can press probably one more revolution front side, but he's spooked a little bit by what he saw with the nose. So he starts to bring the ball back, and there becomes a nice seam on the backside between where the defensive end gets kicked out and where the tackle ends up pinning the linebacker back inside, and he does a great job and sees that and gets the ball upfield for a positive run here.
Yeah, I mean that block by Newhouse is great. 55. Yeah. That's a younger linebacker. I want to say it's Cole something. Because he's coming back. I mean, he's feeling it, flown over the top. Marshall does an excellent job of making sure everything comes through.
And both of the linebackers, to their credit, both of the linebackers understand the scheme because both of them react to the wing tight end going backside, even though their front side uncovered linemen are zone and right. So they both step correctly, feel the tight end or the wing tight end, I'm going to call them, and then they fall back trying to get in position. But they just they end up getting pinned off because they get some nice movement with the backside 2-eye. They get him kind of rooted, and the left tackle is able to climb up and pin, pin 55, pin Holcomb.
Crack research team there helping us out. I did have Cole right, but Holcomb there. There we go. One thing just for that crack research team, we're going to have to add slice to the glossary there. Make sure we make a note of that. We used to call those zone. I was a defensive coach. That was a zone rim block on that play. So I try to build a thesaurus this morning. I'm trying to collect all these different terms that I hear in this space and put them together. But no, so Sony does a good job here, and then he's just going to turn this into a foot race. I'm interested in your take on this. I'm of the opinion that there's basically three ways to win in space: outrun somebody, elude somebody, or overpower them. You don't necessarily have to try to do all three in each case. And he just, like I said, flat out turns this into a foot race.
Yep. The only critique I would have on this run, and once again, he's not sure if he's ever free. When I say, like, even here, he's probably not sure if he's free, but love to see at some point, maybe after this next revolution, the ball going to his left hand, and now he can use his right arm and either work a stiff arm on the safety who's coming over, or try to put his shoulder through and lift through the DB. Leaving the, and once again, he may not think he's free enough to change the ball, which is fine. But in a perfect world, have the ball get to his left hand and then be able to finish with his right hand or right forearm through this safety, as opposed to letting the safety have a chance to tackle the ball.
Absolutely. No, great point. Great point. All right, so we're going to carry forward here, and we're going to stay in this Washington game. New England's built up 12-point lead. We're in the third quarter. And so here we are. We're on fullback number two of the season here for New England. And so we lose Devlin, and here comes the rookie. And again, we're going to have a chance to see Sony put some points on the board.
Yep. So it looks like they just running counter, and they end up. See, this is good. One more time. All right. So they're running counter, but based on the tightness of the six technique on the tight end. So normally, if you're going to run counter, there's going to be a verse. An Okie front. I'm gonna call this Okie because I'm gonna say that both guards are uncovered and both tackles are covered.
Sure.
So even though they're covered with 4 eyes and not 5 techniques, are both covered. So the tight end now with a 6 technique, they've made the decision to base the 4-eye and base the 6 technique. A lot of teams also would take this and they would say, we're going to block down with the tight end, and we're going to double team with the tight end and tackle to the backside linebacker, and then we'll leave one puller for the 6 technique, the other puller for the overhang linebacker that's standing at the end of the line. So they make the decision to base the 4-eye, base the 6 technique. Now they've got their first puller on the end of line defender, and now the second puller can wrap back inside looking for 53 or 20.
Now, again, running back vision, running back decision-making here. He's got a pretty downhill path out of here. So what, again, any thoughts coming from that? Because he's got to stay in concert with these two coming across.
Yep. So he's, from the drop step footwork downhill, that's going to allow, and really on counter plays, it's not so much the first puller, it's whoever your second puller and where that guy's coming from. That's really the mechanism. You got to make sure your footwork is going to allow that second puller to get out in front of you, and allow you to read that block. So his drop step is the timing. The first puller's
going to mark that up for everybody just to make sure we're getting that. We're not calling that a false step. We're calling that a drop step.
Yeah.
He's hooked up with that puller.
And that's exactly what it is. It's just for timing, to allow that second puller to get out in front of him. So he's going to have tempo getting the ball. The first puller kicks out. He's really not reading that block. He's kind of feeling it, but his eyes will be on what his second puller is doing. And then based on how well, there you go, you just started doing it. Based on how well the base blocks can cover up the down lineman, will tell him whether I'm going to be inside or outside those blocks as well.
So he takes that inside, little jump cut to work around that first block.
There's a great picture for the back in terms of both New England blockers are on the right side of those two Washington defenders. So he knows his escape is going to be to the right side. Now, as he comes to the right side, his fullback blocks 53, and there's the safety that's going to be left remaining for the back. And now that safety has to fit and make the tackle. In this particular time, he fits outside. The ball goes inside and is able to run by the safety and get into the end zone.
And you talked before about the hat.
Yeah.
Read. So here you're seeing this on the inside.
Yep.
So you're on the inside. Right in here.
Yeah. So that makes it easy. You're just going to follow the hat of your blocker. And this would be a scenario from a defensive standpoint. As they're looking at this picture, they're saying we've really got what would be ideal on this particular picture for Washington on defense is the linebacker to take it on with his other shoulder. And now the ball is forced to the safety, or the safety fit inside the linebacker, and now they've got one guy on each side of that block. Right now they've got two defenders on one side of the block, and one of those guys is out of position. And the key thing from an offensive ball carrier standpoint is to make sure you are able to find the open seam in the defense and take advantage of a misfit by the defense. And right now, from New England standpoint or the offensive standpoint, the offense is taking advantage of a misfit by the defense, and they end up getting points out of it on this particular run. So, those are things. When I say those, the ability for the defense to try to fit everyone, run perfectly, and then for them to try to make the tackles one-on-one, hopefully, and then from an offensive perspective, when a defender's out of place, you make him pay for it.
You made this point in the last run when he took it up the sideline. You didn't, he wasn't confident to move the ball on the other hand, and it kept his hand occupied, didn't give him a chance to get that in there. And so right here, to your point from the last play, now they have the ball on the other hand. Look what he's able to do with that left hand.
Exactly right.
A little bit he needed to get that thing in the end zone.
Yep. You just give you a chance to ward off a defender and not give him the football side to tackle. So that would be a kind of a general rule would be if you're running the ball to the right, carry it in your right hand. If you're running the ball to the left, carry it in your left hand. And that way, once again, most of your pursuit is going to be inside out. You've got a chance to force the defense to tackle through your body to get to the football.
Now, we didn't see a ton of him in terms of being a targeted receiver. We tried to go through, I think it was like 22 targets last year, and we kind of came to a conclusion, Coach. Part of the reason he might have been targeted that much was we had some issues catching the ball. Would you agree?
Yeah, he was inconsistent. Maybe a lack of concentration because he dropped a few what we would think were kind of gimme throws. So maybe a little bit lack of concentration, plagued them. And, they probably got to the point where they were going to have other guys run those particular routes. But here's a nice basically long handoff type of play they got set up, almost like a pick concept with the two outside receivers and really just throwing him the ball in the flat on the shoot route. Once again, pretty good concept, most especially versus the press coverage New York is playing.
So the reason I call attention to the hand thing is just because you're not going to see a lot of receptions here in this particular cut up. We tried going in there and finding some things. There wasn't a lot of exposure to begin with, and then not a lot of exposure that really became noteworthy when he didn't secure the catch. But to your point here, concept wise, they're getting a great mismatch now because they should get those blocks up here. And he's already out leveraging that linebacker, so he should be in great space here.
Yep. And then there's a good job. Here's kind of what we just talked about with Sony here is as he catches the ball going to his left, naturally putting the ball in his outside arm, and now it's away from the nearest defender. And now he does a nice job here avoiding the angle tackle, using his quickness, his change of direction, and advancing the ball up the field, and now he's able to go take on a defender for extra yardage. So this is a really nice play, and he shows a lot of his skill set here with the catch in the flat, with putting the ball in the outside arm, in space, using his quickness and change of direction to make a guy miss, and then trying to use some power on the finish.
Let's see if this angle lets us in the slowdown here. If they get it in the frame, it's all right. This is a tough one. This is obviously blurry angle here, but we talked about when watching him at Georgia, he could catch the ball, right? And that was something we expected teams to do with him in the NFL. So you got a runner here moving towards the sideline. All right. His body contorted because he's looking back at this end zone. Mm-hmm. He's got his hands up above his head and secures this catch while on the move in all sorts of positions. So I got to make the argument he can catch the ball.
Yeah, I agree with you. He demonstrated that skill consistently as a collegiate. Just this past season, as we watched this film, just not as consistent catching the ball when his opportunity was called. And then here's, like I said, what you saw is the ability to create his own yards. Making a guy miss a tackle here. Nice change of direction. And then here going in and trying to finish his run, protecting the ball. He's got the ball protected. He's skinny in his shoulders. So this is a nice – the whole play for him is really, really good in my opinion, based on making the catch, making the play here, and then the nice finish. And then the next time he gets to the – not so much this guy, the linebacker that he finishes – but when he gets to the safety the next time, so I'm the safety, okay, and I'm going to come up and support. And in my memory bank's going to be, hey, the last time I tried to hit this guy, he lowered his shoulder on me. I better brace and get prepared for that. And then maybe the next time I get 41 in space, now it's when I break him down and shake him up a little bit. So that's constantly part of the game that goes on when you get to these unblocked defenders, and what plan am I going to use to defeat that guy's tackle? That's something that's got to be thought about and worked on from Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday to game day, and then you execute that plan. So, some guys that I've coached in the past, I would want to have them be physical at the beginning of the game. We're going to run through shit at the beginning of the game. We're going to send a message with our physicality. And then as the game wears on, then that's when you get creative and you try to shake up guys as they try to almost brace for them getting run down. It depends on who you have and what their style is. But I think there's a game plan in terms of how you're going about attacking unblocked defenders.
Oh, it makes perfect sense. And that might have been the most elusive thing we saw, in this work from him, was him making 55 go by there. Just again using his leverage against him.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll take this one through slow, and I'm again interested in your thoughts and reads here, and so we're going to call this play side and this backside.
Yep, there we go, and it looks like New England's running an outside zone concept. New York's in a wide five technique. Five technique is, when I say wide five, there you go, defensive end on the open side. He does a good job of getting up the field and forcing the edge or containing the play and not letting the play bounce. And he's got to be able to do that by his body leverage, being outside the blocker, and then also working up the football field. Once again, trying to get to the level of the ball carrier. And that's important from a defensive standpoint, so the ball can't bounce around him. So he's got a two-way go at this point where you have the film frozen. He could, what I would term, stay on his angle. He started on an angle to the outside hip of the tackle on the exchange. He could kind of stay on this angle and try to run away from the nose guard who 75's blocking, or he makes the decision that 75's block is going to pass by his face, and I'm going to cut up and get to the backside of the play. His decision isn't bad. If you go back to the beginning of this play, because we had this same look a little bit earlier. We saw New England in a tight or a cut split with Edelman, and we saw a safety in the box from the opponent. So really this same picture. Now, they ran an inside zone versus Washington where the ball came all the way out the back door. Edelman was able to push the safety by, and we saw Josh Norman come up and make the tackle versus Washington. Here's going to be really the same situation, except this is an outside zone run to the right, not an inside zone. As Edelman he now can't push the safety beyond the point of attack, and now the safety makes the play. So just a different scheme of run. If this was inside zone, this ball would come all the way out the back door. It would bend back quicker, and it would get to the backside corner. Because he's on an outside zone track, this is more of the thought process. Hey, I'm putting my foot in the ground, and I'm up cutting as the defense goes by. And now Edelman's on the wrong side of the block on the backside. So it's just really schematically the outside zone versus the inside zone. What can be done on the backside with the wide receiver handling a safety. Edelman just can't get his hat across here, and the safety's in position to make the play. Sony does a nice job of feeling the defense go beyond him, and everybody's beyond him, and the guy that makes the tackle or forces the tackle is the backside safety.
And then again, when you talked about, the front side backer stayed home here, the backside backer crosses face. So all that's getting processed.
No question.
And you'd say he did a pretty good job of reading that.
Yeah,
decision making overall.
I think at this point he has a two-way go, and so he made the decision, put his foot in the ground and upcut the ball. Once again, he probably could have stayed on the angle as well, but you've got to allow your ball carrier to play, so to speak. We're going to give him the information where we want your eyes to work, and his eyes told him everything was going by me. I'm up cutting, and he made the decision, was decisive, and he went.
Again, finishing forward.
Trying to always finish forward.
He's not afraid to throw his body into conflict there to finish plays.
Yep.
So staying in this Week 6 game is our third exposure to it. New England has a 7-point lead. So now we're going to get 85, the tight end, coming back into the backfield. We're going to have a different lead blocker here.
Yep. So New England is just working a backside insert play. They're zoning the front side of the play. They're man scheme in the backside of the play. So really, they've got a nice scheme here because, once again, this is designed to put the backside linebacker in conflict. This football play is designed to put the backside linebacker in conflict off 85's block. And now with the center and the right guard, as they zone the play side linebacker, Sony in his mind should be thinking on this concept that I'm going to press the ball front side, but I know I'm coming back in behind my center. But the key is I know what decision I'm going to make, but don't execute that decision until you ensure that the nose guard and the play side linebacker stay front side. And really now as you work back, you're reading the one-on-one block on the fullback, on the linebacker, and you're just going to make the fullback right by the decision you make. Fullback's hat's outside, you run outside. And then we see good job base blocking the two backside defensive linemen by the guard and tackle. And then Edelman now gets in position and he kind of squares up the safety, doesn't have to push him by the hole. So now Sony's got a little bit of space here and can get the ball downfield to the second level.
You got to give New England some credit here. Again, we've seen a lot of these plays where Sony has gotten yards have been well blocked.
Yeah. They haven't represented the AFC in the Super Bowl all these years because they're not.
They got a couple of coaches there, and Ivan Fears and Dante kind of what they're doing too.
Yeah, they know exactly what they're doing up there.
So this Giants game was a big one for us, and this cut up clearly fourth play in this one. And we have a one back opportunity here because we have our screen. So again, we have a couple of passes we snuck in on this one just to give you guys some exposure here. So when you're looking at a screen, talk to me about what can a running back do to help a screen play.
Yep. So the biggest key is always to remain behind what I would term your screen element. That's the coaching point I always use. And when I say screen element, everybody's a little bit different on how they coach their screens with their interior three offensive linemen. The tackles are going to stay on and pass block the whole way. Your interior three linemen, play side guard, center, backside guard, different people coach different things, but most people will coach the front side guard ends up being the first out, the center ends up being the second out, and then the backside guard ends up kind of peeling and looking for any retrace from defensive linemen, and he kind of stays behind the play, so to speak. So your screen element becomes your center and your play side guard. Your backside guard's kind of some people call it rat kill. That's what I've been used to hearing, that they're going to kind of turn back and make sure nothing pursues from behind. The mistake that ball carriers make at times is they're too impatient and they get out ahead of their screen element, meaning they're outside of the guard and or center as opposed to being inside the guard or center. It's not a huge issue when it's a zone defense, because the linebackers, once they see pass, initially drop back. So even if I outflank my screen element, I have time to get back inside to help set up their blocks. The real coaching point is when it's man to man and that play side linebacker has you man, and as you trigger in front of the screen element, he triggers and is able to get to you before you can get back inside. That's the real issue. So his timing is good. The screen element's gone. He's behind the screen element. Right now we've got 2 for 2. You can see the first guy out is blocking the first support player. Second guy out is turning back inside. And now from a ball carrier standpoint, you'd hope we would be able to get a little bit more done here. We had 2 blockers on 2 defenders, and I don't think we did a good enough job setting up that primary block. It looks like New England's coaching their guys to throw in space. When I say throw in space, the first guy out is trying to cut block. 69, you see here, he's going to try to cut block as opposed to just go fit on somebody. So once again, Sony's got to have an ideal, and this is coached. Now, I don't know exactly what New England's coaching, but if they're coaching for the first guy out to try to load or get outside leverage on the defender, then that ball should be trying to work outside as well. If they're coaching, they want to kick out the first defender, then the thought process on the ball carrier would be, I'm going to bring that ball inside. I think by the lineman going to the ground, it kind of clouds, to be honest with you, the read for the back, because once again, now I'm not reading a hat. You understand what I'm saying? If you make it real easy when you start to put all your coaching points together, when the ball carrier is just working off the hat of his blocker, then it's easy for me to go the right direction. Now we're trying to cut block in space. Does he get the guy down? Does he get him down with outside leverage? Does he get him down with inside leverage? It just adds some variables to what 26 is trying to see and work around.
Sure. But to your point, in an ideal world, this guy is still dealing with a cut block, should not be able to make the tackle.
Yeah, we got. Yeah, I'm thinking there should be more yards here. And we've got to find a way to make more yards. I know 47 does a nice job, gets off the ground and makes a play, but shit, let's go here. Let's get something done.
And I think this comes back to kind of my point on these guys is that the draft position changes a lot of the expectations, right? I mean, when you talk about a guy that you took in the first round, that's a guy you have a lot of expectations for. And to me, I think that starts to change the barometer. If this is an undrafted free agent, he gets that. I don't know how many people are, upset with him. It is what it is. That's, we didn't draft him. We didn't expect that when we drafted him. It's kind of cherry on top of the sundae. Well, all of a sudden, hey, this is my first round pick. And it's no, I drafted you because the guy on the ground shouldn't tackle you.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point you're making, Dan, in terms of the expectation level based on when he was acquired. There's absolutely no question.
So we've seen quite a bit of them working things to the weak side here, and we're going to see it again. So again, with this, the play side backer here being stacked, you'd expect this ball to have a pretty good chance to flow outside of him, right? Because you'd expect your blocker's hat to be on his outside shoulder.
Yeah, and once again, we'll see how it all plays out. But right now on the outside zone, the right guard is going to work with the right tackle. So you see him start to go and protect the right tackle for an inside rush, but and his eyes are going to 47. So if nothing happens, the guard is going to protect the tackle, then climb to 47. The guy that really wins on the block is the center, because right now the center has what I would term won the A gap. So if you go back to the beginning of this, from a defensive perspective, the nose guard is the A gap player in the defense, and the center does a great job of getting front side. So now the nose guard ends up being in the backside A gap once the center reaches him. And so technically on defense, they're a gap short now. And the ball carrier is able to just run, really stay on his angle here because they've pinned the defense. The defensive end 44 has kind of done his job and widened. And now Sony is able to just really basically stay on his angle. Nothing's taking you off your course and work through the defense. Ball's right, run right, ball right. So now I can use my left arm to ward off all this trash that's coming from inside out. And he does a good job of breaking the initial tackle and gaining 4 more yards. So, it's outside zone football. Once again, New England's doing a nice job, really nice job on the backside, or not directly at the point of attack. They're winning with their center, they're winning with their backside guard and backside tackle. And then the other thing that constantly shows up on this film is the wide receiver position with the Patriots. Those guys go in and block.
They definitely do. We've seen Edelman make his fair share, to say the least. Well, here we're going to have another screen, and we wanted to see a little bit about, again, his ability to stay behind the screen element, as you talked about it here. So here are interior players that he needs to try to time out.
Yep. And once again, this is where he would have an issue if this were man. Once again, it doesn't show up because it's zone, because he's got enough time to kind of get back in front. But if this were man, if you go back one more, go back just a little bit more, as he tries to release and that guard hasn't gone out and started his block, if the linebacker was playing him man and triggered, the guard's not going to be able to make the block. Now it's zone. So this doesn't look like much, and to the untrained eye, this is great timing. But to me, he's a little bit fast here. Now it all works out. They got people in front. That's what you'd want it to look like in terms of when he catches the ball. And then unfortunately, he takes his eye off the ball and drops the pass. But the timing is critical, and it really is magnified when a team is playing man to man and they're hugging your back with their man linebacker.
And that's a difficult one for that guard, being that 2-eye hitting him thick.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to work off that, especially with the knockback.
But that's the back's job, though. You know what I mean? That's your job. So once again, my point is, just if you go back on this last, I'm just want to make sure I got this point made. If 57 has the back man to man, if he triggers downhill and doesn't see this as play action pass like he does, he sees the hi hat, so he's out of it. But if he's man to man, he is running downhill to meet the back in that gap. When the back gets out there before the guard, he's just going to tackle him before the guard can really get in position to block. So that's all I'm saying there.
No, it makes a ton of sense. So they got to catch it, though.
yeah, they got a big play if they can get this one.
Got to catch it, though.
Yep.
And to me, just screams concentration, because if he has the ability to, if he has a physical ability to catch the ball, then to me, those are concentration drops. And those have to be frustrating as a coach. Because my guess is, in practice, you watch him catch it, and he catches it, and then all of a sudden the lights are on, and we're not getting the job done.
Exactly. You're 100% right. Very frustrating, especially with a guy who has the ability to do it. So
put him on the jugs machine a few more times after practice? I mean, what do you know?
No, you're going to do all that stuff in terms of try to give him tools to help fix the problem, whether it's extra catches, whether it's distracted catching. You know what I mean? You can have a guy catch and distract him, kind of have guys hitting him as he's trying to catch the ball, shield his eyes a little bit, or give him some type of other things that he's got to really focus on the front tip of the ball to make the catch and go. So there's a lot of different things that you can do to help that issue.
So we have a different blocker in here. So now we got Eric Tomlinson. We've seen Izzo and Lacoste. We've seen Jacob Johnson and Devlin. And so again, Michel's had to work with quite a few players being that lead blocker for him.
Yep. So here's a good job, and this is good. So we've talked about the counter plays or the gap runs. Basically it becomes a veer scheme. When I say veer scheme, the end of line blocker, in this case it's the right tackle, is going to go inside across the hole to a linebacker. We saw the tight end do it on the pin and pull earlier. We're seeing the first puller get spilled by the defensive end. So as the first puller comes, the defensive end is taking his outside shoulder and going into the block. Yep, there we go. And now the second puller needs to be able to see this. So the second puller, we'd like to get around this block. He goes inside of it. So now we don't have a hat to the play side linebacker where 82's trying to go. So 82 didn't do a great job of reading the first puller. So now he's left Michel one-on-one with the linebacker. The linebacker kind of, fits a little bit inside, and Sony's able to run around him. But that's the coordination that has to happen when I'm the second puller. I've got to be able to read the first puller just like the ball carrier is reading me. And it's the same thought process. And I think it becomes easy when you tell a guy making the decision, I'm going to work to the side of the helmet of my teammate. And so in this particular situation, 82 does not do that, and we don't get the linebacker blocked, but Sony makes a miss here, and the ball still gets upfield.
So this was one that kind of struck me because to your point, Tomlinson doesn't get around, 82 doesn't get around, that when I'm trying to figure out the processing abilities of a running back, again, you're trying to get in someone else's head. That's not the easiest thing to do. Mm-hmm. But he felt this, he felt that spill.
Yep.
He sees this hat. He's anticipating this, even though it doesn't come. He feels that and still brings himself to that position. He doesn't have the lead blocker now. He's got to make it work.
Right.
But he seems like a smart player.
Yeah, I think once again, as I watch him play, I don't see terrible decisions. I don't see the film riddled with missed run reads. I see a guy that every once in a while is a little indecisive. He'll make a decision, and every once in a while, I don't see the gas get pressed all the way down and really, really be convicted with his decision and go. Every once in a while, he's still hunting and pecking. But I think overall, he makes good decisions. He shows, but not consistently enough, his ability to make people miss, the contact balance and the toughness. Would like to see him do a little bit more when he gets in space. He's won some, he's lost some, and then the drops are a concern.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. All right, so we're staying here in this Jets game, and again, you brought up before the Bear front. We saw it, I think, in week 2. Mm-hmm. We saw quite a bit out of them. Have it again here. So we have our edge setters. We have our guards and center covered, so it creates some difficulties here.
Yep, and let's see how New England's going to handle this. Let me just see what they do with the center, whether they block back or space this. Okay, so they've made the decision. They've made the decisions to work what I would term a trips call. Normally on a gap scheme run, you're trying to find a way to double team at the point of attack. Well, what this bear does, it takes off some of your double team. So as opposed to double teaming the left tackle and the left guard back and base blocking the center and then trying to pull your guard and pull cut the backside tackle, they've just said, hey, center, guard, and tackle, you guys are all going to block your inside gap. So that allows the tackle to block the 3. It allows the guard to block the nose guard. and it allows the center to go all the way back to the backside 3 technique. And then it allows the backside tackle 61. His job is much easier because he just has to hold off that 3 before he blocks the defensive end. And I'm going to assume they're going to put 84 through to the linebacker, but we'll see what. Yeah, so they're putting 84 through to the linebacker.
And so again, he's holding, but he's really going to come out here.
Correct. So on the backside of the counter play, the decision always is, how are we getting through to the backside linebacker? Sometimes your tackle can go through based on the front. Sometimes your tight end's going to go through based on the front. Here, the tight end's through. They still got the wide receiver in a snug alignment to block a backside safety. And then their 2 pullers can handle the overhang and wrap for either the safety or the inside backer based on what he does. So
again, the running back here has to get with the second puller.
Yep. So his drop step should time it up that the second puller can get out in front of him. Now the second puller here is fighting through a little bit of penetration with the 3. Is that the nose or the 3? Who's penetrating? The nose is getting a little bit of penetration, so it's kind of making 82 have to bubble back a little bit into the backfield, which is kind of getting him and the ball carrier kind of a little bit closer together. But he kind of manages. Now, see, this is what you would hope would happen. 82 the last time kind of got spooked on the wrong arm by the defensive end. Mm-hmm. This time he probably is anticipating it and is able to get around. And now he gets to the second level and makes his block and allows a ball carrier to work off of him.
And then right there, that feel to take that back end side.
Yep.
Like a pretty good decision, in your opinion?
Yeah, no, I think it's good based on how he sees the safety support outside. Knowing that he doesn't have a hat for the safety. Safety 20 supports outside. He's feeling the 82's block kind of stretch, put his foot in the ground, get vertical. Once again, I think Sony does a nice job with what he sees in his decision making. It's just some of the other stuff that shows up a little bit that I don't want to say is disconcerting, but it's something that you hope he can get better at as time goes on.
Yeah, just show a bit more in those areas.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was the lightning to Chubb's thunder. Coming out. I mean, that was kind of how that little package worked down there in Athens.
Yep.
And he seems like the hammer all of a sudden. and James White's the one working in space. It just seems like an interesting little change of pace there.
Mm-hmm. And this is another to Sony's credit here, having a real good feel of what they're trying to do defensively. They're running the duo play from offset or inside zone. It's a duo football play from weak set. And the way Baltimore is lined up with the backside linebacker on the hash mark. So if you go back to the beginning of this is hopefully what the back is processing. All these things he's processing pre-snap. So the way this blocking scheme is going to work is if I go right to left, the right tight end 84 is going to block the defensive end. And now what it allows for 2 interior double teams. So the right guard and right tackle are going to double team up to the play side linebacker. There you go. And the left guard and the left center are going to double up to the backside linebacker. When the backside linebacker ends up getting over the football here, this is really almost an easy read for the ball carrier, thinking, my job is to control the linebackers. The way I'm going to control the linebackers is I'm going to keep the ball and I'm going to start play side. But I know this ball is going to find the backside B gap just based on where the linebacker is. So I think Sony does a nice job of understanding what's happening here by the alignment. And then he sets up his blockers very well and is able to attack the open gap in the defense. So this is, in my opinion, really good initially with the ball carrier. Then he's trying to do a nice job of read the receiver's block. And the defender that ends up making the play is the play side linebacker. There you go. He ends up showing up and makes the play. So I think 26 is doing everything he can. By the time he starts to cut, now 48 is on top of him, and he's just got to brace, protect the ball, and finish the run. So once again, I think the consistency of his eyes continues to show up. I think he knows exactly what he's looking at. This is nice. And then here's the thing that happens again on this particular play. So I'm evaluating Sony Michel. Where I see him at his best in terms of making guys miss a tackle are when his shoulders are on a 45. So once again, he's on an angle run. He's not shoulder square to the defender. So he gets in this position where his shoulders are on a 45. The defender's trying to make an angle tackle, and he has the ability to change direction, drop his weight, and get back upfield better than the defenders. This has happened like 3 or 4 times on the film.
Sure.
So that's really is showing up to be his strength. His strength doesn't seem to be when he has a shoulder square on a defender, making that guy miss. It's more when he's working these working off angle tackles is where he's at his best in terms of creating his own yards, in my opinion.
He has, and he likes to. He does a really good job here. These little subtle things to me, which is a little bit self-preservation, but he finds a little pocket to stick his head in here, which not only keeps him from getting big direct contact, but also adds 2 to 3 more yards.
Exactly right. Yeah, he can get skinny. I like to use that term. Take his surface area, and shrink his surface area by twisting and contorting his shoulders. There's another example. So This is 2 plays in a row where we see Sony on what I would call shoulders on a 45, but being able to make a defender miss a tackle because he can put his foot in the ground and change direction. And that's what you saw all over his college tape, the ability to do that.
So again, another little weak side run they've got here.
Yep. And so here, the right tackle wins. Whether you say the right tackle wins or the defensive end for Philadelphia loses, the right tackle gets outside leverage. So now this gives a path for the ball to circle the defense.
He's able to get away from that contact. And then again, from the wide, we saw that miss.
Yep.
And tuck it back up inside, and all of a sudden we're gaining 13 yards.
Right. And then it's those dirty yards at the end of the run too that are good, keeping your feet alive, finishing forward, so he does some nice things in certain situations.
I will say one thing that's just kind of drawn my eye here is I'm looking at the down and distance on each play. We've had a heavy dose of 1st and 10s. And I'm just interested in your take on obviously New England's blocking well. We've put together a lot of that. The schemes make sense. The guys are getting the job done. Is there anything to most of his 4+ yard runs coming on 1st and 10? Is there anything that comes to mind for you?
I would, and knowing, as we all a little bit as we watch football and kind of know New England's offensive system, the amount of play action pass that they also use on 1st down, I think complements some of these runs that we're seeing on 1st down. So, they're not a team that is, run on 1st down and throw, on 3rd down. They use their play action pass game as well as anybody on 1st down. So I think that plays a little bit of a part into it all as well. Is it play action pass? Is it run? I'm a linebacker. Am I seeing it 100% clear? And sometimes those little split indecisions, can help one side or the other. Here looks like just a bust. Looks like just a bust with the left tackle here. In my opinion, the left tackle should be blocking 58, blocking the defensive end. They're running just zone left, so he's got an MA or a missed assignment. And then Sony corrects it because he makes the defensive end miss. So he shows his quickness once again, his change of direction in the backfield, and really he's forced off the linebackers. Now if you go back, this is another good, to me, this is a good picture. Watch how this is why I respect the hell out of Sean Lee. Watch how fast number 50 triggers when he sees the tight end start to slice back. It's zone. He's in front of the tight end on the slice because he understands the blocking scheme so well, and he's anticipating the ball's going to bend back because it's a zone run. So you can see the vision of the defenders as well when you watch film and see what they're looking at through their eyes. But the Dallas defense right here are anticipating this football play. And once again, Sean Lee is anticipating this football play faster than anybody else on the defense because he's already running to where the ball should be going. And the ball, I mean, the guys like him and Luke Kuechly and what they see, it's really fun to look at that side of the ball as well for some of this.
I really like you calling attention to that because they were bringing that tight end across to take this end man on the line of scrimmage.
Correct.
I don't think they wanted to leave the DN completely unblocked here on this concept. But here again is that 45-degree angle, and he's got a player running with full speed, and he works himself right off of that.
Yep.
And now he's out.
Yep. And then once again, just little things like it's quick, and it happens so quick. But it's really good in terms of just now having the outside arm to be able to use as a weapon, using his speed. And Sony's not a home run guy. He's a doubles guy. He's not the 4-4, 4-3 can run away from everybody on the defense, but he can advance the ball and get positive yards with his speed. And, once again, that was a good illustration from him. Another good illustration, making a guy miss on quick penetration on the outside zone and then getting the ball forward and up the field. So when he can change direction, stop his feet, and then get reaccelerated, he's really at his best.
So I want to see that again here because 75's got a tough one.
Yep.
Trying to work back on this. This is where those penetration fronts can be a real pain. 75 is not getting that one done.
Yeah, no, and this is good though too from a ball. If you go back, so here's also what has to be part of the conversation for when you're developing your running backs, and we're looking for all those physical characteristics and mental, quick decision-making characteristics, but it's also the football intelligence. And I guarantee, because I know the guy that coaches him, Ivan Fears does a tremendous job, is we've seen him run outside zones, right, to the weak side. We've seen that. But here's one of the few that we've seen with a 2-eye technique, meaning that A-gap defender is now covering the guard and he's not covering the center. And so that's going to make that center's block that much more difficult to cover that guy up. So I know Sony already in his mind is having this may be a quick cut up based on our center's ability to have to wash the nose beyond the hole. And he executes it very well. He's not surprised by this. And I think it's a lot because of how he's been coached and his football intelligence and the feel he has for this football play.
Absolutely. And then got to give Cannon some credit here on the backside. Actually,
yeah, they do a great job on the backside of plays. And what it does, it expands backside gap. So here's really, I think, is important for the audience to understand. If you just go back before the snap of the ball, and I want to make this point. So before the snap of the ball, the B gap that the backside 3 technique is defending is a foot wide, right? So between the guard and tackle, there's about a foot split. But they do such a great job on the backside. They take that backside B gap, and as the guard goes left to get to the backer, and that tackle cuts the 3 technique, now that backside B gap has expanded to where it's about 6 feet in space. And that's the space that the ball carrier needs to get through the line of scrimmage. So as important as the front side blocks are, those backside blocks are so important to create run lanes, most especially in this run scheme, on an outside zone scheme where the ball is going to press and cut the majority of the time.
And again, Sony trying to win that foot race, and when he does need to, he will finish with that power. See it again here.
Yep. And once again, all little fundamental things. Like I said, running left, balls in your left. When you run right, balls in your right. So here he goes, balls in his left hand. They're running lead zone. They're able to put the combination block of the tight end and tackle inside to they got 3 backers in there. So let's call them the off the ball outside backer. Yep. And then the guard, as he zones, is really going back for the Mike backer for 54. So they've got great leverage on the defense based on the angles of their zone blocks, and now they can take the fullback position and kick out the end of the line. So schematically, really good job, in my opinion, by New England on the setup schematically, and then good execution in the backfield. Fullback with the kick out, ball carrier reading it, being inside out, but staying on his angle through the second level.
And just because we brought this up to start, here's our our last our linebacker convert, Landon Roberts, having to come over, and I've been getting him coached up. And then I gotta call attention to your guy Sean Lee here again, just the way he navigates this to kind of scoot through there and make Isaiah's block very difficult.
Yep. And he
almost
gets
it done.
Yeah, he almost gets it done. I mean, he's a great has been a great player. You know, he's had some injury concerns and concussion concerns, but when he's healthy, he is an outstanding football player and makes you work extremely hard to try to beat him mentally.
Yeah, that's a hard task right there to beat Sean mentally. All right, so another play here.
Yep. So
blocker.
Yep. So what's going on here? And this is the cat and mouse game on both sides of the ball. New England showing them a tight end wing set to the left of the offense, but ultimately what they're trying to do is they're just trying to run the power play, and they're trying to run it at the 3 technique to the right. So they're going to motion their tight end across the wing, across, and as they motion across, they're hoping that the defense doesn't move, and now they can double team the 3 technique. But Houston's a step ahead of them, and Houston resets their front on the motion. So now they're back to running it to the shade 5 side. Yep. So this is the nice, what I would call kind of cat and mouse game between trying to run a formation where you can get an advantage or run a play to a desired look, but then defensively they didn't allow you to do that because they had an answer and they reset their front on the motion. So you can run the play to either look to the 3 or to the shade. It looks like New England was hoping to get it to the 3 technique. They still execute fine. They base it up and end up getting, let's let this run a little bit more. Let me see how they're handling this on the front side. Yeah, they're trying to run it almost like power extra. They're basing the front side. It looks like the fullback's extra for the safety, and the backside guard is working a 55. So they've got hats for hats. Their 2 tight end or their 22 personnel sets are creating some extra gaps in the defense.
And again, Sony following that blocker's helmet.
Yep.
He stays inside. He's going to come off his shoulder. So he consistently seems to be able to follow those blockers and has that leverage.
Yeah. Like I said, I think he does a really solid job with his eyes and his understanding of the plays and the schemes and what they're trying to get accounted. Here's another one. This is nice here. This is okay. Good finish. Let's see here. Okay, working the counter game again. Really ends up, the second puller never goes upfield. He stays at the line of scrimmage. Sony doesn't want to wait for him, so he goes, and then once again is able to make a guy miss a tackle, which is good. One of the few times that he made a miss when the shoulders were square, and then avoids and then has a chance to go finish his run.
That little jump cut, he seems to only execute in the backfield. We haven't seen open field scenarios yet, but he has pulled that off in these things 2 or 3 times now.
Yeah.
And he has it.
Yep. And different guys kind of have their, I'll call it their signature move. You know what I mean? Their go-to, so to speak. And inherently, it's his jump cut is his go-to, and he's a good plant cut guy.
So again here, finding some yards off the blocking.
Mm-hmm. And it's the same, it's just repeating what I said the last time on this motion play. Now, the thing that's a little bit different here from Houston's standpoint is everybody on the front go back, if you don't mind. Everybody keep going back before the motion, if you don't mind, please. Okay, so they've got an under front, right? So they're set under to the offensive left. When the tight end, the wing motions across, they want to go under to the right. So they're trying to reload the front. Everybody reloads except the 3 technique. So you see the backside, the nose reloads, the backside 5 reloads, the 3 technique doesn't. So now he's in position to get double teamed. So they got one guy that kind of didn't get it quick enough from a defensive perspective. And that's why communication is so important. On the football field, both verbal and nonverbal, is being able to communicate. As Houston's trying to change their front, sometimes, New England's going to be changing their blocking patterns. And then from a ball carrier standpoint, sometimes you got to just be able to see nonverbal communication, not hear it, but just see things. And once again, does a nice job of getting the ball out the back door of a gap scheme run.
You brought up the term getting skinny before. Again, one of those things where he could have tried to bring that all the way back and maybe brought that DB fully into play.
Mm-hmm.
But he's just stays with his blocking.
Yep. Yeah, he does a good job of not missing open seams on the backside of runs. Like when the ball ends up coming back in behind, he then punctures the defense and gets vertical. Different from some guys who, when the ball comes back in behind, they're trying to run all the way out the back door of the play. Sony, once again, credit his vision and instincts. When the ball ends up coming back in behind, he gets vertical and punctures the defense.
So we're going to watch first puller, second puller again here.
Yep.
So they come down and down.
Yep.
Wrapping two.
Yep, and really they've got the this is a little bit different scheme because they're not on the left side of the concept. 76 is not veer releasing. He's going to block base and pass set. So now the first puller is going to be able to end up going to the second level. So both the pullers now are going to block linebacker level defenders as opposed to the first on the down lineman and the second on the linebacker. So it's a little bit different scheme, but obviously they create a great hole in the front side B gap with the scheme and get a positive run.
And again, just him working with his blocking here. He stays with 83.
Yep.
And fits that north and south.
Yep.
We're gonna have no questions about whether or not he will take it upfield.
Yeah.
He certainly run it in the A and B gaps if he wanted to.
Yep. Yeah, he's showing that he can run inside the tackles. He shows he can get outside the tackles when they ask him to. Really here another no nonsense type of run. His timing is good with the pullers, and then he's able to finish downhill. No kind of nonsense run with this guy.
So again, they get their double right here at the point.
Yep.
Puller comes for 57. That'll work.
Yep.
That's a good day at the office there. And then that double got up to 59.
Yep. And now he's able to, try to work his way to the secondary.
I'll just take that back and let it flow.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, he gets what those blocks give him, man. I mean, we've not seen poor decision making or anything of that nature. In this,
correct.
These runs were positive runs.
Consistent with his eyes. That's the one thing he is. He's consistent with his eyes. Here's a better example what I was trying to talk about on the screen. Only because the play side linebacker is hugging the line of scrimmage and not dropping back. And so once again, you can kind of see how imperative it is for the ball carrier to be behind his screen element, not out in front. And this is a better example only because the linebacker is trying to hug the back.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. All right. No, didn't gain any ground, stays right there. Linebacker's on it. Linebacker sees it. He just can't get in there and make the play.
Yep. And here's one of the situations when the center ends up being the first guy out. And not the guard, based on how this. So you'd think 69 is going to be first, the center is going to be second, but here the 75 is out first, and once again you've got to be behind your screen element, and then the center is out second.
There we go. I mean, again, he can catch the ball. I mean, he has to double catch it on this.
Yeah, but look, and then here's the point you made earlier though in terms of concentration. His head. He has not caught the ball and his head is already starting to turn around, and that's why he has some drops. So catch the ball with your eyes and your hands, and then go seat it and go make a play. His head's coming around a little bit too quick, and that's the inconsistency that has caused some drops by him.
And I was just, like I said, I've been fascinated by this space, what he does in the open field, because he really doesn't show an interest in being elusive, so to speak. I mean, you talk about the
Yeah.
45-degree cuts, but he's using a guy running at full speed against him. He'll cut
Exactly.
off your leverage, but he's just going to run at an angle and try to gain ground. I mean, he's done that screen game. He's done it when he breaks a run. I mean, he runs for the shoulder or this, space, and whatever he gets, he gets.
Yeah. And he's, he uses this one skill in terms of his ability to stop and start to his advantage on a lot of his runs. That's the one thing that is constantly showing up to me is his stop and start ability and his ability to change direction. And it gets him out of trouble here. It's got him out of trouble on a lot of other runs. And that gives him a chance to make plays down the football field. Once again, I got to, you see certain things. I keep having to give credit where I think it's due in terms of just the ball security here versus the run through linebacker. 2 hands on the ball, protects the ball, just little things that the kid's been coached on that show up on the film.
I'm also interested in your take on, so here he's got 57 on the run through. He's got to deal with this. He's trying to rehold the ball or maintain grip on the ball. And then his ability to kind of reset and get back into the flow of the play. Do you think a running back can really do that unless he truly understands the concept?
I mean, yeah. I think the instinctual part of, he's probably carried the ball, this young man. When you go back to his youth football and high school football and college football, he's carried the ball so many times and is so used to trying to elude defenders that it becomes so second nature that, oh, there's a guy, I make a move, and then my attention gets back upfield so quick, and you can see that, within his game and within a lot of guys' game. It's just that second nature of elude a guy, just keep working up the field. He can string multiple movements together, which is, when I look at backs and start talking body control, to me it's how many different change directions can I see a guy make as he's still moving forward. Some guys can make a change of direction, but then they get themselves off balance and they're on the ground. This guy on that last run made a change of direction, got vertical, made another change of direction with the spin, got vertical some more and finished. So that's one of the tools that this guy really has is his ability to change direction. His football intelligence keeps showing up. He's kind of fundamentally sound as except when he's rushing, catching a pass. And he's really, really good when he's on a 45-degree angle of making guys miss tackles.
And here's another time where he's got to read the second puller.
Yep.
I'm in here. Times it up. And then you talked before, and this was on your clinic, and we'll talk about more on those in a second, but you talked about splitting. And so many times you're going to see a running back in here, they're going to end up trying to bounce it, and then we're lateral, and we're not necessarily gaining ground. I'm interested in your take on him kind of feeling this almost stalemate, right? The hat's kind of, more of a straight-up position of him just staying inside.
Yeah, I think there's a couple, just initial premises from a ball carrier standpoint. I think when you're running the football, you're thinking inside out in terms of gap run. So he's doing a nice job of, I'm starting downhill tight with an aiming point, and it looks like their aiming point is the A gap based on as I watch this film. But as I run these schemes, I'm trying to keep the ball as tight as I can until I can't, if that makes sense. And then it's going to work inside out. So all of his runs, you never see him with a gap scheme run starting outside and then having to make the cut back inside of the kickout block. Everything is inside out in relationship to the kickout block. So when these seams downhill present themselves, he's in perfect position to go attack them and get upfield. Now you see a jump cut again, which is kind of one of his signature moves, and then a finish with a plant cut. So his strengths show up as strengths consistently. His weaknesses show up as weaknesses consistently, And then once again, just the thought process of downhill, inside out, running is what happens, and then he does a good job of reading second level hats.
I mean, he really does here. Feeling off block on 55. Again, taking this thing vertical, ball security through the ground. But again, on that vertical trajectory.
Yep. He doesn't miss seams in the defense. He attacks the seams in the defense and is able to get north-south. And so for the lack of explosive plays, you do see the consistency in terms of how he's being coached and how he's handling some of those things. Here's another example. Once again, the more I watch him, here's another example of him with his shoulders on a 45-degree angle and the first defender not making the tackle.
So we get a hat on a hat here. We're going to come out for 35. He sees all that, works through, and now we got a free player.
Yep, and once again, look where his shoulders on the 45, not squared up. He does more damage here than he does when he can get his shoulder squared up on the defender.
Trying to finish strong again.
And other guys are different. Like, so the guy that comes to my mind, one of the guys, there's a lot of guys, but the one guy that comes to my mind when you get him one-on-one when he squares up defenders is LaShawn McCoy.
Oh.
Like when LaShawn fronts up a defender, he will make that defender miss more times than not.
Yep.
Sony doesn't have that particular skill, but Sony's skill seems to be better when he's working the 45 on a guy, making that guy miss a tackle. There's another one. So, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I do want to point out where there's a guy and he runs through the tackle again with the ball on the outside, being able to use the free arm and be able to, when his shoulders aren't squared down the field and he's kind of on a 45. That's, like I said, and once again, as you know that as a coach, then you try to put your player in those positions. So to me, going through this film again, I would run more outside zones with this guy than I would run inside zones because of what I'm talking about and how he wins and how he creates his yardage. And it looks like New England understands that because we're seeing a ton of outside zone on this film along with the gap scheme runs.
Yeah, they've gotten more and more with the pin pull. They've gotten more and more with the outside zones, particularly later in the season. And it would, I've been coming more and more around to the idea of players being problem solvers, right? And then each guy can solve problems in different ways. And you just talked about how he builds and stacks. And so it would be fair to say that on the 45, it's a stack of he's got foot speed. He's got contact balance. He's got willingness. He's got strength. And then to your point, he does have the ability to change directions.
Yeah.
And he's got so there's a lot of things that kind of stack upon each other that are generating that outcome. And it consistently shows up regardless of who's reaching for him. I mean, here he's getting a chance to outrun an angle, and he's got the stiff arm in there. Even if they get a shoestring, he seems able to kind of pick his feet back up and get him down. He just seems to have a lot of those things. They're subtle, but they stack. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. I think you're hitting it right on the head. And here's the other thing I think from an evaluation standpoint. Whether we're looking at Sony right now as a potential free agent if you're another team around the league, or if you're looking at this film or similar film from his college 2 years ago, it's what does this guy do best and how does it fit our system? That's the other piece of the evaluation process that I think every once in a while gets missed. Like, does this guy, because once again, to me, he's a gap and outside zone runner. And if we're running those concepts, then I like Sony Michel better. If you're telling me we're running inside zones all the time, then I'm going to have him maybe a tick down because of what he executes well and does well and what he doesn't do well. I think sometimes when people are just evaluating the player, they're not also looking into what scheme does he fit best in. So it's a combination of his skill set, but then his skill set on our football team.
Sure.
And sometimes that second part, his skill set on our football team is missed, and you just evaluate his skill set and you think you can just plug it into our football team. that's what's showing up to me. And I think New England is using this guy to the best of his ability based on what I'm seeing.
And so here we have the last one of our cut up. This is the playoff game here against Tennessee. We'll slow it down as we often do.
Yep, counter again, inside out run, reading ahead of a second level blocker, inside the block, and then once again, to New England's credit, their wide receivers are freaking blocking people.
Just call attention to that.
Yep. Hey, the difference between the first down runs and the touchdown runs are usually the receiver's block.
And for being the fourth fullback of the year and being a linebacker convert, going to give a little credit here to a Landon Roberts doing yeoman's work on this one.
Yep, agree. Agree.
All right, so that brings us through the end of this, and I think we've kind of just gone through some of those final thoughts, as you mentioned there, in terms of who he is. I like what you talked about with the scheme fit from that standpoint. I got to come back to, I think right now a lot of people are down on him, Coach, but it's based on the expectations in the pedigree, right? And it's based on that round status, because I'm not seeing a bad player. But to your point, we didn't see explosive plays. We just saw consistently good plays.
Right, and I think that's fair. And probably the other thing that you would say maybe the expectation hasn't been exceeded is what is his classmate at Georgia, Nick Chubb's, doing with Cleveland and how well he's played. The expectation was those guys were kind of the same, even different styles, but the same type of production in college. And Nick has continued that in the NFL, and Sony hasn't to this point. So I think that may play a little bit as well.
Well, Coach, I want to get into what you have going on these days and have people hear from you. They got a chance to hear you break these down. And obviously, I kept talking about the session I was able to sit in on, and you going through the reads was such an impactful one-on-one. I hope evaluators can take a look at. So tell us a little bit about, again, where you've been and what you have going on.
Yep. Well, I've been a long time, college and professional football coach. My entire adult life. Have coached all levels: high school, college, and the professional level. After the 2018 season in Detroit, I decided to step away from coaching for a couple different reasons. And in the meantime, I've started up a consulting company called Third and Three. And basically what I do there is I coach coaches. I try to provide a platform to bring coaches together for networking opportunities and for professional growth opportunities. We talk about all sides of the football. We talk about leadership. We talk about things that aren't related to the on the field in terms of putting your game plan together, putting a practice plan together, evaluation of players. I try to have it be all encompassing. And it's a place and a platform for coaches to grow and hopefully get better at their jobs. That's the intent of it for me. And it's been received pretty good so far. We've been able to put together, some things that have brought other coaches other than myself into the teaching. And we do these, what I call roundtables. And you had mentioned earlier the initial running back roundtable that you were part of. We just basically ran that back this past Wednesday and had over 40 coaches, from all levels. And the thing that's really, really neat is to see and listen to a question that a high school coach has, and to hear a college or an NFL running back coach address that question. You know what I mean? And different guys being able to share their input and really help everybody grow. And the thing that's neat is I think once the call ends, we've all got something out of it. So the level that you coach at really doesn't matter. It's just really the fellowship and the professional growth opportunities. And what I'll end up doing is getting together with some experts in their particular positions, and we'll turn and have some other roundtables other than running backs. And this next week coming up, we'll have a wide receiver defensive back roundtable where we've got coaches from both sides of the ball talking about what they do. And then coming up down the road, we're going to do an defensive lineman one, and then we're going to have a special teams one as well. So those are things that we've got coming up to try to give coaches at different positions an outlet to maybe go here and be a part of something that's different, a little bit unique, and I think has been once again received very well from a content standpoint.
Yeah, to listen to again the engagement that those guys had, and I mean, you heard coaches from all levels asking questions. I mean, it wasn't just the high school guys. I mean, the NFL guys were saying, "Hey, you know, I deal with this," or "How do you guys look at that?" or what have you. And you know, it might have been a college coach answering or what have you. And to your point about fellowship, I was blown away by just how engaged everybody was, and that openness and willing to share was really impressive. So, a great group you brought together.
Yeah, and the thing is, everybody that's gotten anywhere in coaching has had someone else guide them and kind of be a path, a pathfinder, a path leader for them, and it's just our way to pay back. And like I said, we talk all the time about different issues and problems because we're all trying to solve those, issues of the issues that a coach that's having to deal with the bare defense has at either the high school, college, or pro level. It's all relatable. So it doesn't matter. We can come up with solutions together. And that's one thing we try to do. And like I said, share and learn and have different guys getting used to talking and presenting. I think that all just helps guys. And that's the purpose of the 3rd and 3.
So we're going to have the link to that in the description below. So please, guys, go check out what Coach has going on at 3rd and 3. And there's a lot of information there and obviously more to come on that one. The other one I wanted to ask you about is the group I actually met you through was tracking football. And so I wanted just kind of to get your take on what you've been doing over there with those guys.
Yep. So tracking football is really there's a lot of ways to evaluate football players. You can do it subjectively through film. You can do it objectively through some statistical information. And at tracking football, we use an objective lens to evaluate and help scout football players, whether it's high school players becoming college players or college players becoming professional players. And so I've been working with those guys for about 1.5 years now, and really enjoy what I'm doing. I'm learning a lot about the makeup of players and what certain good players all have in common, position specific. And we use a metric based off of track and field data points, and based off body type and based off position guys played, and we're able to do a lot of different comparisons to guys that have played before to current guys that are playing now, and draw some correlations on what are the real important things from a physical standpoint that are needed to have success at the next level of football. So the tracking football stuff has been fun. It's going well. And now just doing some 3rd and 3 stuff has kept me busy, but I'm enjoying the hell out of it.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We're, like I said, links to what you have going on there and to tracking football as well below, just so everybody can get a glimpse into what's happening on that side of things. And again, really appreciate you coming and sharing. I learned a ton. I'm sure everybody else did as well. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. As always, below you'll see our social channels. We try to put out content to help you guys out. It might be these full-length things or just one-off clips or what have you. And we've got some more stuff coming down the pipeline that we're going to try to just give away and help out and educate as best we can. So we thank you so much for joining us. Please like and subscribe if you think you learned something here today, and we'll see you next time.